Wait. Go.
Good evening. I'm here today to help inform the nonverbal and verbal communication between men and women are demonstrated. I will talk about the nonverbal signs your mate uses in conversation, actions versus words, and different levels of communication. After conducting a study on my own, I realized that most people are familiar with nonverbal and verbal communication, however, don't realize when it's used in communication. I will help everyone be masters at nonverbal and verbal communication at the end of this. I put together a little graph of how males and females use nonverbal communication. Some of the things on them are females claim less territory on their own, as men most likely have room at home, den, study, workshops, or offices that is off limits to others. Women are more likely to return a smile when smiled at, and men are less likely than women. It goes down in detail how females and males break it down. Did you know women physicians spend an average of 2 minutes longer talking to their patients compared to male physicians that engage in more rapport building, as Arthur Roeder and Hall talked about in their 2002 book on nonverbal communication? I will show you the differences in nonverbal and verbal communication between men and women. I will talk about the nonverbal signs compared to the verbal signs. Now let's look into nonverbal signs as your mate uses in conversation. Researchers already document nonverbal behavior between men and women, especially what is called nonverbal immediacy, or behaviors that create a closeness between people. Nonverbal immediacy includes behaviors such as eye contact, smiling, direct body contact, and gestures people use in conversation. For example, women tend to smile less than men do. That's talked about in the National Communication Association Volume 6 in February of 2011. Women communicate differently than men do in many ways, as shown previously in my chart. Women stand closer to each other in conversation, and men reveal less emotion than women do in conversation. Do actions speak louder than words? I'm also going to speak on actions versus words and how they differ from each other. Many people know that actions sometimes speak louder than words. Actually performing a task rather than speaking upon a task shows a big difference in how people communicate. So let's say you ask your husband to go to the grocery store. You know he doesn't want to go to the grocery store, but as you ask him if he actually goes to the grocery store and stocks the fridge, you're surprised that he did it. That action shows that he was dedicated to what he was saying compared to not dedicated to what he was saying. Now let's look into the levels of communication. It's important to know the different levels of communication when conversing with different individuals. There are 3 levels of communication. The first level is superficial communication. I'm speaking to someone about the weather, about what you ate for lunch, or just everyday life that you live. That is the simple superficial communication. The second level of communication is the personal communication. That consists of opening up and talking about your feelings, beliefs, and opinions with individuals. The third level of communication is validating communication. This reinforces people's feelings about themselves. For example, you can tell more about a person by what he says about others than you can by what others say about him. A great journalist, Leo Aikman, once said. Communication between men and women are more complex than you think. I hope I helped inform the different ways verbal and nonverbal communication are demonstrated by men and women. The nonverbal signs your mate uses in conversation, action versus words, and the different levels of communication. So next time you're conversing with the opposite sex, remember the different techniques used in communication. Are men really from Mars and women are really from Venus? People wonder if men and women are different in that aspect. Are men really from Mars and women really from Venus? Based on my study and the conclusion of my analysis, both men and women conducted answers in the survey. I think it really shows that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Thank you. Questions?
Do you have trouble talking to men?
Speaking with men is different. I use a lot of nonverbal communication with them. It seems to be a little bit easier than actually verbally communicating with men. They do things a little bit different than women.
Do you communicate differently with women? Do you have any issues communicating with women?
Communicating with women is a lot easier. They know, they do things similar. We both smile, we communicate, we talk, we converse together. So that's a little bit easier than conversing with men. Yes.
I'm trying to think of the way to form this sentence. Do you prefer to talk non-verbally, or